Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. And I have a motion moved by Doug Hutchison, seconded by R. Herget. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby returns to open session of Council at 7:03 p.m. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, Mark, and you can let the minutes show, Mark, that only those items that we mentioned to go into closed session were the only items that were discussed. Very good. We don't have any public meetings. Consent agenda. I have a motion moved by R. Herget, second by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that items A1 to A3 inclusive contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted as printed. And further, that authorization be given for the actions to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Any questions or comments on the consent? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Yep. Okay. And with that, Mark, I believe we are down to communications from Mayor and Council. Do we have anyone that has any communications from activities over the past couple of weeks? Councillor Lawrence. Carol? Turn the little button there, and I'll push the other button.
I just want to say Norman, Rec had the family ball tournament on a week ago Saturday. Very successful. It was 14 teams, but very successful. The weather kind of cooperated, and they had a good turnout at the fireman breakfast. So, and I did attend AMO along with other councillors, Mr. Mayor, and I assume we'll be talking about that at Committee of the Whole, since we have a fairly large agenda tonight. But it was a good conference, I'd say, and a lot of things learned. Yes.
And it was nice that we showed up in Ottawa, because it's the first time that they've had 3 days of sunshine since last August, I believe someone said when I was there. So they appreciated us coming and doing that for them in Eastern Ontario.
Well, we sure did bring it from here.
Any other comments? I was able to, before I left to go to Ottawa, was down for the Colleen Lawrence Memorial Run, the 10th annual. Very well attended. Because of scheduling issues, I was not able to participate this year and defend a title that I've held for a couple of years. So I allowed somebody else, but I haven't heard who the victors were, but I was talking to the organizers, and they said it was another very good event, and the participants were up this year. They had over 200 registered runners and walkers, so great thing for them. And the wood show at Wellback was on again on the 11th and the 12th of August as well, and was a success as well. As we'd mentioned at the last county council, or the last council meeting, that it never seems to be a dull moment on a weekend in West Grey. I think there was the ball tournament, the run, the wood show, and a few other things were also on the weekend. Every weekend is jam-packed with excitement here in West Grey. So anything else? Any other communications? Anything coming up? Very good. Okay. That brings us down to delegations, Mark. And I believe Mr. Edwards, Rob Edwards is here. Speaking of activities, Rob, for the last number coming up. Rob, yes, if you could, Rob, just use the last person was well over 6.5 feet tall, so we'll get that microphone down for you, Rob. Rob is here, bringing us an update on the Terry Fox run in September. So the floor is yours, sir. Rob.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. I was out to all 3 events too, and they were very well attended that you had mentioned. My son, myself, and my grandson all ran in the race, and 3 generations came across the finish line. So I don't think I took the title from you.
All at the same time you came across the finish line?
Well, yeah, we all waited. 2 of them waited for me. Anyways, I'm here on behalf of the Terry Fox Run. I'd like to thank Mayor Eccles and Council for this time. My name is Rob Edwards. My wife Deb and I organized the Terry Fox Run here in Durham, in West Grey. And we've done it for about 6 years now. Just a little bit of history about Terry Fox. Terry Fox started his run on April 12th, 1980 in St. John's, and after 143 days and 5,373 kilometers, it ended in Thunder Bay on September 1st, 1980. This marks the 37th anniversary of the Terry Fox Run. This year's event will take place on Sunday, September 17th. It's at the Durham Conservation Area. Registration is at 1 o'clock. The start time is at 2 o'clock. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite all of you and the West Grey staff to join us this year. We're trying to get away from the run thing. It's more of a walk, a stroll, just come out for the day and enjoy the afternoon. We still do have some competitive runners that come out and like to know their time, and we welcome them too. And I'd like to thank everybody that has been out and supported previous events. To date, the West Grey Durham Run has raised $394,168.03, and we've been going for 22 years. The schools in our area last year raised $856, that being Normanby and Spruce Ridge. We're trying to get St. Paul's and St. Peter's back online. They went off a couple of years ago, but we're working on them. I'd like to give you just a little bit about what the Terry Fox Foundation has done in the last 37 years and how they've grown. Over 9,000 Terry Fox runs happen each year in Canada. It's all volunteer-led and organized. All runs are accessible to anyone. There's no minimum pledge, there's no entry fee, and it's a non-competitive atmosphere. 82 cents of every dollar goes towards cancer research. To date, the foundation has raised $750 million for cancer research. And when you think about that, when he started this 37 years ago, when he was just running across Canada to raise $1 for every person in Canada, it's really growing. A little bit update in cancer. 6 out of 10 people will be alive in 5 years after their diagnosis, a number that has improved by 5% since the mid-90s. Children, the great news is that a 5-year survival rate for a childhood cancer is 83%, up nearly 20% from 1980. So I think we're doing good stuff. Some people have told me that 37 years is a long time to just keep going back to the well, but we in West Grey have a very deep-rooted base of people that come out every year, and this is a thing they support, and it's wonderful, and we have a great day. So I'd like to invite you all once again, September 17th. These are the new this year's shirts. And thank you again for your time.
Well, Rob, thank you very much for your dedication to this project. As with most projects, there is a time frame for the volunteers, and there's been a number of people lead this in Durham and in West Grey, and I say thank you for grabbing the mantle as somebody's handed the torch to you, and you've done an excellent job. And I wish you the best on for another, what'd you say, 37 years?
Yeah.
You're going to run this one? Okay, we'll leave that one with you greatly appreciate your work that you've done, and I will say, even though it's my son's birthday, I'll be there.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Our next presentation is from Timber Restoration Services. This is along the Durham Walkway Bridge. We've had an interested company, Dan Tingley and Tim Cormier. I got that right? The Dan and the Tim I was okay with, are here to give us a presentation. So Dan and Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you might want Brent to move, because I do believe you have a PowerPoint presentation. So look forward to it, and the floor is yours. Yep. No, it's very good from here. Now you're going to have to turn it on as well, too. There's a...
Done. There we go.
you go.
Is that good?
You're live.
Great. Good. Well, thanks for having me here, Mayor, and councillors, and clerk, and Brent, and others interested. My name is Dan Tingley, as you said earlier there, and I'm Senior Engineer at Wood Research and Development. We're a code-certified test agency. And I make my home in Jacksonville, Florida these days, but I grew up in Moncton, close to the rocks. If you've ever been to the largest flower pot in the world, that's where I grew up. And you'll hear that New Brunswick accent because my kids haven't been able to kick it out of me yet. And they've had a good run at it, I'll tell you, but it's still there. And they keep after me to change my citizenship to the U.S. because they're all dual citizens. And I say, no. If it gets really bad down here, I want to be able to go home.
I love your enthusiasm with the if part.
Anyway, I'm Canadian and proud of it. And I grew up in Canada, and I got my bachelor's in forestry engineering from UNB and my master's there, and I was teaching in Halifax. And went out to Oregon to get my PhD in wood technology and structural engineer, and never left. And the opportunities for my technology for reinforcing wood products grew down there. And so as a result of that, over my career, now 40 years, because I'm 63, I got a couple more years at full time, and maybe 2 or 3, Lord willing, at half time. And so I can tell by some of the faces you are also recognizing these things. So anyway, it's great to be back in Canada. I flew in late last night from Jacksonville. And why am I here? Well, that center picture tells the reason I'm here. And as you can see here, we went out today with Brent to take a few pictures of this grand old railway bridge. And this is the primary reason I'm here, is that do not enter sign. And so, what is it? Who are we? Well, I've told you who I am. Dan Tingley's my name, and of course, Wood Research and Engineering is my game. And we are a code-certified test and third party. I'm senior engineer for our engineering group. We have offices around the world, and we fix timber bridges, old ones. And that's a specialty of ours, and particularly railway bridges. And in addition to having a commercial engineering group, we are a code-certified test and third-party agency. And so part of what we already have done, for example, after we found out we were the low tender submitter, is that we, on our own accord, sent a group of level 2 people to look at the bridge and test the bridge. And part of that testing is this stuff here, you'll see cores that we take from various parts in the bridge, and we take those to the lab and test them. And then we have compression wave testing, which after I'd invite you to take a look, and Tim will show you how it works, where we send a compression wave through the wood, and it helps us find the places where decay is located. And of course, the location of decay determines the condition of the piece. And then the pieces determine the condition of the bridge. And the bridge is shut down right now, and for good reason, because the bridge is in pretty poor shape. And there are lots of elements actually that are in the process of falling out under their own dead weight. And you'll see pictures coming up of just that. So part of what we do then is we work with timber bridges around the world and restore them, and we test things, and our full scale, we have a big lab in Oregon and one of our locations where we test things. And we're located in Eastern Canada, Western Canada, Eastern US, Western US, 2 offices in Australia, and we had office in Basel, Switzerland. So it's a lot of timber work all over the world. Testing things, understanding what stresses and strains go into bridges. And over the years, I've developed a passion for it. You can see my ugly face in this picture here, just a few newspaper clippings. And I get in the middle of tussles because we're at war with our timber bridges today. The traditional frames of thought are to get rid of them all. We're 3 decades away now from engineers that had any reasonable training in timber. 3 decades. We're a forestry nation, and I was one of the last classes going through UNB where we actually had timber design courses. And I taught it at the University of Tons, University Dalhousie in Halifax. And so because of that, when engineers look at old timber bridges, what they see is things that they don't understand, and when they don't understand things, engineers tend to be generally conservative, and when they're conservative, they generally think, I'll go to steel and concrete. And so we see this mass exodus of our old timber bridges, lots of them over 100 years old. And so I've been called in around the world to different bridges that are heritage-type bridges to ask my assessment and what would they do to keep the bridge going. And where did the genesis of my history with timber bridges start? This is a little covered bridge in New Brunswick called Sawmill Creek Bridge. It was built at the turn of the century. The sign says, walk your horse or pay a fine. And that old timber bridge has been there over 100 years. And the powers that be didn't understand the timber bridge, and so they wanted something they understood, and they didn't understand connectors and how they build them. And because they didn't understand, they built a concrete one and beside it in 1982. It was going to last 100 years. It didn't last 100 years because it's already out of service. And there rests the timber bridge beside it, still there today. And it's a good thing because now they're going to use it for a temporary bypass so they can build the concrete one again. And so at the end of the day, we think our timber bridges don't last. We say wooden bridges don't last. Now this is a bridge that was built, and it's in northern India. It's 760 years old. They grew the bridge, and they liked it so much they grew a double-decker bridge. This isn't Photoshop. These are actual bridges. And they liked that so much they grew their guardrails, their handrails. And what was the secret behind these bridges that are nearly 800 years old is they grew their connectors. And oftentimes it's the connectors in our timber bridges that breed additional decay. Well, you would say, let's go to concrete. I handle the concrete inspection courses for the American Railway Engineer and Maintenance Away Association. And the students bring in their pictures of concrete. And all of these pictures I'm going to show you in the next series here are less than 50 years old. Less than 50 years old. This one, if you're familiar with it, is called Gardner Express Parkway. And I show these pictures around the world and tell them, here's a 38-year-old parkway, concrete built, $1.8 billion to fix with an average age of 38 years. 1.8 billion. And it's concrete. And here are the pictures. I guess concrete didn't last. And so we say it lasts 100 years and it doesn't. And so these are pictures, living proof of it, that concrete doesn't last. And neither does steel. How old is this steel bridge? 28 years old. 28 years old. So see, all materials have their Achilles heel. And concrete and steel are no different. And so I developed a technology for strengthening these timber bridges to improve their capacities to meet current codes and to restore them when they get kind of decayed. And so this technology was designed, we started in Fredericton and went on to get 42 patents in this area. And we developed high-strength fiber that's 5 times the strength of steel. at a fifth the dead weight. And we put it in strategic locations in different shapes and forms and restore things so that we can use 42% wood to carry the same load. And now, the fourth, fifth, and sixth largest buildings in the world are not concrete and steel, they're timber. And the longest span bridges that are not cable stayed are timber. So we see things that are happening in today, and this is the only time I'll brag a little bit, and I don't like to brag, but you have to sometimes to show people that you're able to do things for them. But in 1996, I was nominated for the Charles Pankow Award, which is structural innovation worldwide by all the civil engineering research foundations. I was fortunate enough to win that award. It's the first time ever won by a Canadian. And then in 1997, I was nominated for the Nova Award, which is all construction products. I was fortunate enough to win that award as well. It's the only time they've ever been won back-to-back, and the only time by a Canadian. And what was it about? Wood. Isn't that great? That's wood. And so, it's important for us to be thinking that way. And so, over the course of the years, I've developed this technologies to apply to timber railway bridges around the world. And I'm going to take and show this because it kind of tells my little story. And I know I only have a limited amount of time, but it's a story about a bridge to an island in Australia where 400 ratepayers were stranded, and the Shire did not have the money to rebuild it in concrete. Concrete was going to be $4.8 million. They didn't have the money, and we helped them restore the bridge using the existing elements that could be restored for a total cost of $1.2 million. And the cost of the temporary bypass was more than $1.2 million. So I'm just going to play it. I know I have limited time, but it tells the story, and then I'll jump right ahead. This is Newry Island Bridge here. It's the only way on and off of this Newry Island, and it's a vital link to the community.
David Fowler, the Works Manager for Ballinger Shire Council, contacted me on the basis that TRS may have a solution for the Newry Island Bridge. TRS were asked to have a look at the bridge, make an assessment of the structural integrity of the old existing bridge.
And the bridge was in a very poor state of repair, and then when we inspected it, we said that the bridge should be closed.
We did look at a lot of other options, concrete bridges, uni bridges.
Now this bridge used to be made with a log girder system. It had been built many, many years ago, and the log girders become in a state of disrepair. They had vertical fasteners which allowed water to get into the center of the girders, and they decayed. And 12 of the 14 girders were basically ready to fall out under their own dead weight.
We come to the table with the testing, engineering, and design capability.
We spoke to a few different companies, but no one specifically did the type of repair works and design works in timber bridges as TRS specialised in.
And then you hand the ball off to TRS, and then with their installation and on-site expertise, they make it all happen.
It was 3 days to do this bridge. One floating
The
scaffolding.
materials that TRS uses in the retrofit processes that we use for restoring bridges in situ are low cost compared to the life of the structure that we restore and return.
Wood has the highest strength per pound for a bridge product of any of the materials, steel and concrete included.
There's only a few options available for a replacement in this situation, of which the glue lamp superstructure is one of those.
What material could you design for 12 tons and then load it with 44 tons without it collapsing? Its weight with that capacity
is 1/8 the weight of reinforced concrete and 1/5 the weight of steel.
The Blue Lamp superstructure is treated to provide a 75-year life against decay, and with a higher level of treatment we can provide a 100-year life against decay.
The substructure in a bridge is 60% of the cost of a bridge. We were able to preserve that substructure, put a lightweight solution on top of it so that the substructure could give us more value for our money in terms of carrying loads, and do it economically and do it in timeliness, because we can't have a community stranded for months at a time.
The new system going on is Blue Lamp girders with a transverse deck, curbs, and walkway and crash-proof barrier handrails.
People nowadays, including us, are more apt to try to preserve and save.
We could save these bridges or even just postpone replacement for 10 or 15 years. There's major savings there.
And that's what we want to do, is preserve the timber bridges in Australia.
Anywhere that we can preserve that original heritage aspect of those structures, we think that's a win-win.
Wood is 22 times more carbon friendly than steel. And at the end of the day, wood sequesters carbon. And it doesn't take near the amount of energy to produce for a load capacity that steel would, or reinforced concrete would. And so wood has its natural, environmental, economical solutions that it brings to the community.
So that was kind of the look and feel of what this proposed solution for your bridge, super, deck, and rail system would look like, and it kind of tells the story that I want to tell anyway, and I thought playing it tonight would be kind of representative. It's a highway bridge, I know, but the story is still the same. Your substructure in your bridge, for the most part, is still good. The super and the deck are gone, along with the rail system. And so, back to the story at hand for me, we are a code-certified test agency. We're a structural engineering group, and we link up with timber restoration systems around the world, which Tim represents tonight, to bring forward great solutions for people to recover and restore their timber structures. And it's backed on this great amount of testing that we had in both code submittals, $28 million of code submittal testing to bring forward these solutions that work with the old and the new, as you can see here, testing utility poles, piles, testing them with strain gauges, testing the values, comparing those, developing these types of wraps, which you probably see in your community. This is the Fiber Wrap 2 product, which are used now exclusively by the utility pole industry to restore distribution poles in service. And so we can't take our bridges and go from left to right here. There are 256,000 timber bridges left in North America out of 900 and some thousand total bridges. We can't turn them all from left to right. This one here went from left to right for $5.2 million when there was 13 bad actors in the one on the left. There's just no money. We've got to work with these structures, restore them and keep them in service. We've got to do our best to understand what's wrong with them and fix them where they sit for all types of environments. You guys probably, I won't play it. This is one we're working right here now within Dawson Creek, Canadian National Railway. It's one of 5 like it in the world. It's a parallel chord truss under bridge. We're upgrading this bridge from an E30, that's 30,000 pound axles, to a 65,000 pound axle this very day for Canadian National. And we have to have it done in 3 weeks because they start hauling grain out of Chetwynd. And so we're under very strict timelines, and this is a big bridge. It's a long bridge, and it's big. So these are the sorts of projects that we get involved with. We go in and inspect them all, find the bad actors, color them red or yellow, and you can see all the reds and yellows here, and we're going to restore this. And we look at the zone which it's in our current zone here, you can see right here, this is one of the higher decay hazard zones in the country compared to, say, the prairies out here where we don't have as much rainfall and average moisture content. So we go in, we look at these core samples. You can see here we identify the species under microscope. We do moisture content testing on them, specific gravity testing on them, identify what we're dealing with, and then we're able to restore these elements, as you can see here, designing this truss restoration strategy where all the red ones have to be fixed. using high-strength fiber like this placed on the bottoms of the pieces sometimes on the sides of caps like this one, sometimes underneath. All times these retrofits are going on while trains and cars are running on the bridge with restoration techniques involving high-strength fibers, saving, this is in Brisbane, a 2-day weekend, we replaced a 2-lane traffic bridge, start to finish. This one here is another bridge in Australia, a 2-tracker, where we replaced the bridge in 2 days. So advanced solutions that are accelerated using timber are the things that we specialize in our design, combining the old and the new, which is what we're proposing here for your railway bridge. Save the old, put the new with it, make it timber, and continue to carry life. Use vertical fasteners that don't go through the top. Keep them all below so they don't go through the top to provide a way for the moisture content to get to the center of the piece where it's not treated and accelerate decay, like this. What's unique about this bridge? Can anybody tell me what's unique about that top? What are you not seeing in that top? What don't you see anywhere? There's no fasteners. There's none. You see, and that's the secret. We all build decks in our backyards. What happens to our decks? We cut the ends of the treated timbers and we put nails in from the top, and 10 years later we're having to replace a threshold, a sill, a piece in that piece. It just doesn't last. Because why? We're exposing bright wood is the term. That's the untreated wood, and it decays. Instead, we could be building like this, beautiful bridges that last a long time, 100 years, and provide service. This is one we just finished inspecting and looking at a design upgrade in Golden, BC. The spans are huge, 38-meter clear spans. So we have hundreds of these. This is in Japan, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Over the years, 1,300 and some of them. Built to the Japanese here using fixed end moment connections to build them in segments, lift them into place in long spans. This is an Austria bridge, one of my favorites, a beautiful looking bridge. And we're building one similar to this in Woodstock, Tim, where is that CNR bridge? Goebel's in Woodstock? Near Woodstock, yeah, close to Woodstock, Ontario, just now this fall. Very similar to this. This is out in Oregon. This is in British Columbia. You can see lots of timber bridges here. I won't play this video. It's one of my favorite old railway videos from Dead Red Center of Australia. But you can see the sorts of bridges here that we're involved in providing solutions for that are over 100 years plus, fixing them, creating pedestrian bridges like this in Alaska. This is a big one here. This long span, nearly 450 feet in timber. Down to the little ones like Bass River Bathurst, which is a railway bridge where we went in and redecked and fixed this bridge up in Bathurst, New Brunswick, just finished a few months ago. And this one here, going back all the way over to Victoria. This one here in Queensland, a railway bridge. Looking at how do we save these old timber bridges and put them back to work. This is Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan. An old CPR bridge had been out of service for 10 years. It was 60 years old. The tracks were all off of it. And Tolko, a forestry company, approached us about restoring that bridge so they could have a private haul road. And we restored that bridge and put it back to the heaviest loading under the Timber Bridge Code in Canada, L100. That's a 100-ton load. And put it back into service using advanced technology, and that's the first truck to go across it, right there. That's a 60-year-old bridge, out of service for 10 years, putting the heaviest load you're allowed under Canadian code back across it. So these sorts of solutions allow us to go in and restore bridges, timber, and keep them. This is down in Georgia. This is a bridge where every 48 minutes there's a railway train on it, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 engines. And going in and finding the obvious bad actors is easy from the eye, but how do you find the ones that are inside the piece? And that's what we're doing with a stress wave timer here, to establish where the bad actors are so that we can fix them. And here's a guy handing up a piece of 2x6 with a piece of high-strength fiber attached to it that's equal in capacity to 3 8x16 girders. So he's handing up by one hand this, and I was going to put on the bottom of this while the trains are running to fix it in situ and restore these bridges. So these advanced solutions have been developed here in Canada that provide a way forward for communities that have a lot of timber bridges or bridges in their system that they can't afford Today, one of the biggest costs we're handling is that our aging infrastructure means that we no longer have the money to just simply replace them all. If you've got a dead-end road where one bridge provides access for one or two ratepayers, it's virtually impossible for small communities to keep these bridges going. And this is an area where we spend a lot of time helping communities figure out how to fix them, keep them in situ, and find the bad actors in advance. As you can see, the train parked here, 6 engines on top of this bridge while it's being fixed. You couldn't take out girders and replace them with a train on it. Here you can see high-strength fiber. This is in Victoria. A bridge was 105 years old. It was 2-ton rated. Cars were going in the water. The bridge was failing. They came to us and said, what can you do with this old bridge? And we looked at the bridge, and I said, somebody said to me, a farmer said 55, 60 years ago during the Second World War, they cut off a lot of piles underneath the water. And we sent down a scuba diver and found piles that had been cut off in 1942. And we said, those piles have been under the water the whole time. They're still good. And the engineer said, you couldn't build a bridge on an old pile under the water. I said, yes, you could, because the timber is still good. And we rebuilt the bridge on the old pile bases that were under the water and had been cut off since 1942. And built this bridge for 1/10 of the cost of a new one. And here you can see the guy's hanging from a swing. He's underwater using a hydraulic chainsaw to trim the edges. Yes, you couldn't send him down with the gas-powered one, just didn't work. And so underwater he went, and there's the finished bridge. 586,000, 2.8 million in concrete. You see, we can't do this, and it finishes well, it looks good, and the community likes it. It's another one here, rated down to 5 ton. Every year they down-rated it. It's gone from 44 to 30 to 20 to 10 to whatever, and the community can't even get a livestock truck across it anymore. And so you look at it and you see a dog's breakfast of fixes where they've butchered the bridge and virtually killed it. Here's what we call a depth shield. And I'm standing next to the engineer of record, and he said, these old bridges, he said, look at that one, he was built in 1921. And I looked at this XXI, and I said, what do you mean? He said, what the year on it when they built it? And I said, they must have been a hell of a long time building it, because look at that one, it's XI over there. That's a depth shield. I said, that's how deep they drove the pile. They had to know that on purpose to be able to design it. And if your people inspecting your bridges think that a depth shield's the year marker, we're in a world of hurt. And no wonder we're replacing all our bridges, because we just don't know. And so these are the sorts of things that help us put this bridge back in action. You can see it here. Put back in action, fixed up, using the sub, putting it back in service, and there it is today, putting back in service for 1/5 of the cost of a new concrete bridge. And so these are the solutions that bring, this is another one. We're $2.8 million to replace this bridge. It was knackered pretty bad, and the front page of the newspaper said, and they're going to build a bridge on this. And the reporter asked me, he said, Dr. Tingley, how could you ever build a bridge on that? And I said, that's the best thing you could ever build a bridge on. I said, because down in here, below the oxygen line, they're as good as gold and they're seated. We'll heal up the top and put them back together and put a bridge on it. I said, it can't all be about looks. I said, look at me. If my value was defined by what I look like, I'm in a world of hurt. And so, these bridges are old looking and tired looking, but they still have years of service. And here is the bridge back restored now. For what? $385,000. It was $2.8 million. And so being able to go back in and put these bridges back to service, this is in Hamilton, Snake Road, Hamilton, Ontario. And the bridge got out of service, and the nuns used this bridge to bicycle across every day. There was a lot of community problems because this guy has a house and a driveway right here. Concrete girders wouldn't go across it. They're going to have to buy land because they couldn't afford the height, and there was a lot of consternation over what to do. Hamilton City didn't want anything to do with it, and so we provided a solution that looked like that. And I still remember the first time the chief engineer for the city of Hamilton looked at the blueprints, and they were all timber. And he said, you can't build a timber bridge anymore in Canada. And I said, what? He said, you can't build a timber bridge in Canada because it's just too, they're not in the code anymore. And I said, no, they are in the code. And so we, of course, went ahead, built the bridge in the factory, and away we went and built it through the winter and got it finished, as you can see here, and it's completed. down in Hamilton at a significant less cost, combining the old and the new to put it back in service. And there you can see the problem and how we dealt with it. So good-looking community service. This is Providence in Ontario, an old bridge that went out of service. We went back in, found the bad actors, and put it back in service, found them, and restored it back to its good use. And it's now back in function, a third the cost of concrete, as you can see here. And so these are the stories of us. That's what it would look like right there. This is our PED bridge options. You can see the ones that are in design right now for around the world, different looking ones, and here's yours. And we went and sent our team in to do a DLAP survey. We don't have any contractual relationship yet. We haven't signed any agreements. This was just because I felt like I wanted to understand the bridge better, because I felt that this bridge might have some areas that were a little bit of concern. So these are the things that came out of the visual inspection. As you can see here that we found. We backed this up with stress wave time values and with the cores to be able to understand what was bad. You can see the caps, the stringers. Basically, these are the summary. And you can see all the reds that we found in the super and substructure. And this is some photos here. Shows debris that we talked about today needs to be pulled out. It shows you the dog's breakfast of different caps that need to be restored. The tops of piles that are banded that would need to be restored. You can see here different elements in the bridge. So this shows you the bridge needed to be closed, because these are elements that are actually dropping out under their own dead weight right at this time. As you can see here, and there's the biggest one right there. That piece is completely pulled away, and the bridge is totally unsafe as it exists. This one is completely cavitated out. It's gone. The bridge is out of service. So we put this rendering together for the solution, as you can see here. We submitted this with our tender, providing a solution that basically heals down by trimming down the tops of the piles, putting in girders, a transverse deck, a rail system, and putting it back in service. This is what we showed you in your renderings. And kind of putting that bridge back, keeping its look and feel, keeping the feel of timber, keeping the look that it currently has right now, but restoring it and renewing its lifetime. And what we did was we looked back down at the cost of this previous tender after we found our DLAP survey and found things that had not been uncovered in the original inspection. We said, well, these folks are going to want to get this bridge healed up. So what we did was we took our tender, backed out the things that we felt were not necessary to have this bridge and it restored, and then added back in some abutment work that needs to be done on both ends that was not in the specifications in the tender, and came back out with this price of $335. That does not include a rendering board. We did not put that in the play. That's a $2,000 line item in the bid. So that's the, I don't know, but maybe that's it. Yeah. By the way, how old do we think this bridge is? 1,000 years old.
Well, I was close. I just love the zero.
So anyway, that's the end of the story. I appreciate you bearing with me. I took you for an extra 10 minutes that I wasn't supposed to. I'd be welcome any questions that you would have now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tingley. Any questions? Carol?
Well, yeah, I wondered if to Brent. Brent, we had asked about going with the single post down and a more heritage-looking lamp or light fixture. Do you have answers on that one?
Actually, Councillor Lawrence, hydro is not included in this price. And after discussing with Dan and Tim on that, I thought it was actually better that it allows me to, once the structure is built, is tender out or actually have the electricians go on site and actually can look at the scope of the work that's involved. And I think I can realize a better price and have more time to search out the items that you were seeking in the first go.
All right, so if it was manufactured and put in place, so it's going to have the double?
No, that was for, correct me if I'm right, Dan, it was for single poles oscillating each side.
You can see them here, yeah.
Okay, but it doesn't include the lighting?
Does not include the lighting.
It does not include any of the hydro. So as I said, I think I can have a better idea by calling quotes and actually getting hydro contractors on site to show them the scope of the work and obtain a better price once the bridge is constructed.
That rendering was showing 28 posts, but you had said that you wanted to cut it back down to 14. It was just a save cost.
Yep. And our feeling was from our engineering team was that this bridge was in such terrible shape that it's currently falling in under its own dead weight. And if it falls totally under its own dead weight, it's going to damage the substructure of the bridge such that it'll cost a lot more money to repair. You can't let a bridge fall in on itself. It breaks other things that are good. And so we felt, as a council, you'll probably want to at least know that you got the bridge restored and got it whole again so that it's structurally sound. And then you could work on other things if you had to stretch your budget out. Because it is what it is. I mean, we really went to great length to drop the price on this, and we have some other work that we're going to be twinning with that's going on in Ontario, as I said, in Woodstock. And so the idea is to get it whole restored.
Okay. Councillor Hurd. Rebecca?
So what weight capacity are we building for? We're just building for pedestrian walkway?
That's correct. 5 kPa or 100 pounds a square foot.
And is there any possibility of reducing the width of it?
It's 10 feet in this current solution. I don't know that you'd want to go any less, but you could. That's a pretty wide walkway, by the way, 10.
Can you tell me about the ongoing maintenance plan for this? It's 75 years of guaranteed wood.
I understand you. What we'll provide when we finish is, here's what comes with the package from the engineering side, which I direct, is that we provide, of course, we develop a working drawing set that the building or the structure is built from. With that goes a shop drawing set with the details. When it's finally completed, there's what we call an as-built set of drawings. That's the final what it looks like set of drawings. Then with that comes a load certification, 5 kPa, and with that will come a maintenance schedule, which will give you directions on what you should be doing and at what intervals to keep this bridge functioning indefinitely. And so our concept here is that you would, people ask us all the time, well, how long do you warrant this? And when I say, well, 75 years, they look at me and see all my gray hair or no hair, and they say, that's easy for you to say, you know, because I'm 63. At the end of the day, what we're really saying is that this bridge should go on indefinitely if properly built and then maintained. We wouldn't put a lifetime on it. That's just why I showed you all these structures. So people then say, well, what's our cost of maintenance, Dan? Because we hear a lot today about FRP bridges, fiber reinforced polymer bridges, and aluminum bridges, steel bridges, those sorts of things. You hear that a lot today. And concrete bridges. People say, well, concrete bridge will last longer, but that's a misnomer because they don't. And so typically we accrue a bridge today, if we're building a concrete highway bridge, we'll accrue them for a 100-year lifetime. I would say the province of Ontario has learned the hard way with Gardiner Expressway that that is not what we do. And today we're changing that to 45 years. So typically, I would say within 5 years, we'll see that the life cycle analysis for most bridges will drop to 45 years for capital accrual means. We say that these bridges are good for 75 to 100 years if properly maintained. If your maintenance crew went around and started drilling a bunch of holes in them from the top and hanging stuff from them, which we'll caution you about in the maintenance schedule and give you directions on, but if they start doing that, this bridge won't last nearly as long, will it? Because they'll have opened bright wood, that's the term for untreated wood, and it will decay. That's what's going on that bridge right now by vertical fasteners. That's where they're decayed over there right now, is all the verticals from the top. I don't know if that's answering your question.
No, it's not. So I'm looking.
Drill in deeper. Don't let me off the hook.
So I'm looking for the cost.
Yes.
The cost to maintain it, is it on a timeline of 1 year, every 5 years, 10 years?
Perfect. So the cost per a bridge, on average, a timber bridge is properly built, is about $485 to $550 per year. That's the typical cost that you would accrue from refreshing diffusers and regular maintenance issues that you would have to do. So I would say that from a budget purpose, you probably would want to count, since it's not a highway bridge and it's only 10 feet wide, you might want to count on $250 to $350 a year for maintenance type of things. Blow the debris off of it. Don't let it have debris accumulate. Keep the debris away from the upstream sides of the bench. You have some hauled away there now. There needs to be a lot more hauled away. Those sorts of things, they cost money, and that's what you got to do. Is that answering the question?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Good, thanks.
One other question. The substructure of the bridge, the lower portion, the pilings and so on.
Yes.
Are those able to withstand the next 75 years as well?
Yes. They've been there as long as they have, and the nice thing about them is they don't have a lot of verticals in them, see? Everything's going sideways on those. That's why they last longer. Up top, you put verticals in them, and the rain follows the vertical and away it goes. So the answer is yes. That's the short answer.
Great.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, just quickly, when you are to start this project, how long would it take to complete?
Oh, we don't have it costed for an accelerated bridge program, you know, that's what we call that accelerated side. So we would do this in a conventional mode, probably from the time we hit site until completed, somewhere in the vicinity of 4 to 5 weeks. We would anticipate that, say today there was a contractual engagement and we had a purchase order today, we would anticipate that we would be off that site and the bridge completed well before snowfly. We don't like to work in the winter outdoors. Yeah, you got it. You nailed me. It's true.
Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Yeah, just maybe just a comment to Brent. When we do the lighting, we'd just like to keep in mind that we are a dark sky. We do have a dark sky policy, so that's something we would like to look at maybe when the time comes, when it comes to lighting, and that's sort of something we'll have to discuss. The other question I had for you gentlemen is grants. Since you're in this business, are you familiar with any grants that are available to this type of thing?
Yeah, Canadian Wood Council, we have a close relationship with Canadian Wood Council, and they have co-sponsored courses that I teach in bridge restoration across the country. And in addition to that, this coming year, Justin has agreed with them to have a Timber Bridge Initiative program, starts April 1, where they're going to finance timber bridge work. Now, they have a limited amount of timber bridge grant that are available now. We gave that idea to Brent. He told us at supper time that he hasn't got any response back from them, so Tim is going to give him our contact so that he can pursue it a little better.
Okay.
Because we have a close relationship with them.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So that's like the guarantee for the bridge at 75 years. Guarantee will be 75% grant for the bridge?
Yes, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, that's a great thing, isn't it? That would be good. We could really have a good business going if we could get that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, go ahead. I think I know where you're going. Go ahead.
On that
Rebecca.
Canadian Wood Council, that grant wouldn't be available till April 1st of next year, is that right?
Well, there are two programs I talked about there. One is what's coming in the future, which has got a lot more funding, and they're at the tail end of what they had their Timber Bridge program money. And so we talked at supper about what the limits would be. I am not sure how much money is left in their budget. I can't claim to know that and wouldn't be in a privy spot to know it. But I do know that the BC government has been working with us because we're working with them to do all their bridges. We've trained all our people and their timber bridges, and they are approaching them right now. And I got them linked up together this last couple of weeks, and they're talking now about funding $200,000 on a poster child bridge. So I don't know that that means they got 200 for this one. I just know that there has been some willingness to reach out and support people when there's something that has a poster position. You know what I mean? Visual, big image, which I think that this bridge does.
Okay. Bev, Councillor Khan.
We send over a sidewalk plow,
Yes.
trackless,
Yes.
over this in the winter. Is that going to cause any problems with the treatment of the wood or the weight or anything like that?
No. That's good questions, very good questions. Typically, a 5 kPa load will provide for a 6-ton axle weight for service vehicles. So if you wanted to drive a half-ton across it, for example, for service, you could. Now, it's not rated a highway bridge, and you certainly wouldn't publish that. But for servicing purposes, that's what we know. And what we will do for you when we give you the load certificate, we will give you another letter which you put in your file that gives you what we would anticipate to be the emergency vehicle load capacity. And we do that for a reason. Say there was something happened in town here and you needed to get across that bridge for an emergency purposes, we'll tell you what you can go across that bridge with. You see what I mean by that? So that in case you needed an ambulance across there or something, you'd know. See? Yep. Now, as there was the last part of the question, which I didn't get to, which was the surfacing side of it. We intend on leaving the surface, as you could see in those pictures, that brown wood look. You know, that's the intention. If you wanted to come across with continuing slip-resistant surface like you have now on the approaches, you know what I mean, the asphalt side, we'll give you details on how that asphalt could be put on there to have that continue right across the bridge.
Can that be done after?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any other questions at this point in time? Dan, I thank you very, very much. Extremely interesting. I think Adam's got enough now that he can probably post this on our website and, you can go home, okay, Adam? No. It'll be one of the more interesting council meetings as far as engineering goes. Fascinating with these bridges. I mean, you see some of the movies and you have the old wooden structures and for movie background, and amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
The content that's there.
Thank you.
Interesting on the piles. I know that Brent and I are going to have a conversation on that, on some of our other bridges that are out there and what we can build on some of the piles that have been planted in the ground, specifically in Normanby Township, probably, going forward on how we're going to replace the 103 bridges we have in West Grade, Brent. Some of them, of course, were wooden, and there's very few wooden ones out there, but maybe we can go back to something of that. We have one in the community, just for your interest, of the polymer fiberglass infused decking system, and it has worked well.
A grating system, is it? Is it a grate? Is it, do you see through it, or is it solid?
It's solid.
Solid, yeah.
Solid one, yeah.
The FRP grate deck systems are really popular now. The dilemma they face is in the sun, the heat sags them. They heat up in the sun.
Right.
Yeah, so in the northern climates, they'll last a little better, but, yeah.
Well, they should last in Grey County then, to infinity and beyond, because we haven't seen much sun here.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for being interested and attention. Sorry I took a little longer than I should have. But anyway, it's a topic I'm pretty passionate about, as you can see.
I think I discovered that in the first 35
You sensed
seconds.
that a
You
little,
did very
didn't you?
well. Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I do believe that we may have a motion here to accept, so if somebody, or what do we got, Mark? Got a motion that was prepared by the Director of Infrastructure. Do we want to do it under, when we get to Brent's? Okay.
Brent doesn't have a report. If council wants to entertain a motion, it would be appropriate now.
Do we want to entertain, I guess that's what I'm looking at, is, do we want to entertain the motion now for it, or? And the quote, Brent, or Dan, was 335? I'll be like Miss Cutting, was that, maybe I'll drop a zero, is that?
It's 335, 634. How you could tell something to the dollars beyond me, but anyway, that's the way it worked out.
Plus HST.
Plus HST, right? Is it 13%? 5.
Yes.
Somebody wants to introduce.
Carol wants to introduce it? I believe we're getting clarity on the correct name of the project. Comments on it after I introduce. Okay. I have a motion moved by Carol Lawrence, second by Bev Cutting. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Garry hereby awards RFP number 1718 for the design build services for the restoration of the Durham Walkway Bridge to Advanced Research and Development Canada Limited, OA Timber Restoration Services, for a total cost of $335,634 plus HST, excluding hydro. Okay. Questions or comments? Councillor Hergert. Rebecca?
I appreciate you coming and discussing all of this with us. It was a great deal of information that we needed. At this time, I cannot support it because we do not have any, well, I take that back. We have $300,000 in our budget for this. I earlier spoke to the fact, earlier being like July 31st, about how this is more of a want for our community. And it is important. I realize that it is important for our economic development, walkways, everything like that. However, I do feel that we should have some money from fundraising. You've provided us a few opportunities for that. The end of July, I was given authority to go ahead and fundraise for this initiative. As everyone knows, it's very difficult to raise funds after we have the project done. Your project seems like it'll go very quick and without a hitch, and so that doesn't give us very much time to fundraise. I would entertain this the beginning of next year, spring or so like that, once I've had an opportunity to fundraise. I do like the design. I do appreciate the information. I can't support it at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lawrence? Carol?
Thank you, and I hear Councillor Hergert's comments. I don't agree with her. I believe it's something we should do, and there's plenty that's going to have to be fundraised. Rebecca, you'll never fundraise 300 and some odd thousand. The hydro, obviously, is going to have to be fundraised, the landscaping, and I think that's a big enough task. I think you'd be biting off a pretty big bite if you think you can fundraise the 300,000 for the total bridge, and I will certainly be supporting this.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. Any other comments? Rebuttal? Rebecca?
I'm sorry that you feel that this is over my head. I would like the opportunity to fundraise for all of it, though. It is a want. It is not a need. There are plenty of roads and bridges that are needs in our community, and for that reason, I'm still out.
Would you call the question, Mr. Mayor, please?
Okay. I think I need a two-thirds majority to call the question. Everybody ready to call the question? Yes. Okay. The motion, as it's been read and presented, all those in favor?
Can I ask for a recorded vote, too, please?
Yes. Okay. I think it will pass, but Mark, ask you to take the recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Bell.
Yes.
Councillor Cutting.
Yes.
Mayor Eccles.
Yes.
Councillor Hergert.
No.
Councillor Hutchison.
Yes.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yes.
Put the other button on.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes. On the side.
Approved 6-2.
Okay. That motion is carried 6-1. Very good. And again, Dan, Tim, thank you very, very much. Look forward to working with the company on getting the project done so that we can have the bagpipes and Santa Claus come across.
And the Durham girls.
Oh, okay, yes. We won't forget the Durham girls.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your information.
Yep, very good. Yep, great, Dan. Okay. Is there any business arising from the previous meeting that I'm aware of? Council doesn't have any. Down to the Director of Finance and Treasurer. And I believe that's, the first one is on page, whatever it is here, but we've got it. First one's approval of the vouchers. And I have a motion moved by Bev Cutting, seconded by Carol Lawrence. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 15, 2017 of the Municipality of West Grey in the amount of $489,713.45. Any questions or comments on the vouchers? Call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And Carrie, your second one there was the bylaw with the agreement for ATEL, conversation just for information. You've confirming the revenues and how that would be from that agreement and where they're to go. Any further questions from council on that one? No? Very good. I can do that. Okay. Now, where are we here? There we are, Mark. Got to your report. And the first one is the joint building services and report there from the CEO of Grey Highlands who administer that. Any other further comments, Mark?
Yeah, just the one clarification maybe that should be discussed at a future joint building services committee meeting is Mr. Kleinenberg, who has assumed the duty of director of a number of departments in Grey Highlands, as well as being the director of building services for the other three participating municipalities of West Grey, Chatsworth, and Southgate, has basically, he's assumed the director of building services. At the time that he was hired as a deputy chief building official. So the email from Mr. Adams, the CEO for Grey Highlands, did not stipulate what was happening with the deputy CBO position. So if that was to be, I'm just wanting to confirm whether or not that will be filled in time, which I assume there was a need for it at the time, and I would almost anticipate there would be a hire for that position required. So that was one issue I wanted to get clarified.
As part of that committee, we will take that forward, but Mr. Bell, do you have anything you want to say on it?
No, that was not discussed. I presume that this hire was to replace the gentleman who left the department. And that gentleman was in probably more of an administrative role than anything. This gentleman will take his place. And yes, as you can see, 30% of his salary will be paid by the building services. So what exactly that figure is right now, I do not know that. But obviously, we will get that at the next meeting because we do not know under the terms or the salary at which he was hired under at this present point in time. To be honest with you, finding a building official is very tough, but it was recognized that they needed another official because of the busyness of the season and the amount of permits to get through. So that's basically why this happened fairly quickly.
Okay. Rebecca, Councillor Hurd.
Something that I'd like brought forward on this joint building services, the agreement, last time at our meeting, we tried to defer it until we could look into whether or not capital expenses upon an exit would be returned to us, reimbursed at some percentage rate. Upon further review of that joint building services agreement, there is not an exit clause regarding capital expenditures during the 6 months, 12 months prior. And I think, I mean, there's notice, you have to give notice, but beyond that, we should have some sort of clause about capital expenditures within the prior 6 to 12 months, if we do exit, what we are entitled back. If you could take that forward,
We'll
maybe?
take-
Thanks.
Yep. Note that. And on the review of the agreement, will that be at the end of this year or sometime into the new year? That'll probably be when it's looked at. Carol, Councillor Lawrence.
Well, I just wondered what 30% of Mr. Klingenberg's work would be over and above that of the CBO. Like, you have a CBO that I assume does most, and his assistants do most of the administrative work. What in the world would 30% of Mr. Klingenberg's time be done towards the building? I mean, he's joint building services, but he's
Yes.
got a director of building services. Is he directing and over and above the CBO? Like-
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that necessary?
In the structure that Grey Highlands had, it was necessary before. Mr. Leeson was in that position. From HR, from administration point of view of the department with, what is it, three employees plus the CBO that are there.
And then he's over them.
Yes. Yeah. And John, you got the...
Yeah, the definition here is, Mr. Adams wrote in here, with Bill, we have someone who has experience running a large organization, implementing necessary customer service system processes and technology to deliver a top drawer service. As well, Bill has the building code qualification to inspect large houses, manufacturing facilities, and large buildings, which allows the joint building service to provide these services that otherwise we are not qualified to do.
So,
So that could be barns, that could be factories, large buildings, businesses.
and I hope we are the recipient of some of those, but I don't know of any that's in the future, and yet we're paying 30% for that service. Don't know
Well,
too many.
30 we're not paying 30%.
The last gentleman in the department was paid all by the building services who left. That's the CBO, who was learning from the last CBO, and the CBO now has taken on more responsibilities, except for some of the
Okay,
stuff
it just
he's not
sounds pretty
qualified.
rich for small municipalities, but
Yeah, but we're only, just to be clear, it's 30% of his overall salary would be directed, and the formula, I believe it is, we're about 25%. Grey Highlands is 35 of that, yeah.
I was just surprised that the CBO had to have something like that. In this municipality, it's in the city.
That's the structure that Grey Highlands has got themselves into. As a split director, I think they were looking for a director under those other departments as well, too, that he's going to be fitted into. They couldn't justify a director for each one of those, but when you combine it, then that was for him to look over that. Maybe it should have been an assistant CAO. Okay. Any further comments, Mr. Bell? No. Okay. So that's for information, and we'll take those points back. I believe the next joint building is September.
The CEOs is the August, which you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's,
This Thursday.
yeah, it's on Thursday. Yeah, I think it's in September, the joint meeting is. Yeah, the joint committee itself. Okay. Yeah, hopefully county council will be over by then. Okay. So that was for there. The next one is the renewal of the Durham and District canteen rental agreement. This is just an extension of the bylaws, so we do have a motion here to extend. Moved by John A. Bell, seconded by Rob Thompson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves a one-year extension of the Durham District Community Centre canteen rental agreement with Denise Grove based on the same terms and conditions contained in bylaw number 59, 2014. Any questions or comments on that? Doug, Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, just a couple things. I have no problem with renewing the license. I think Groves do a good job. I just would like to suggest that in the future that we maybe look at what we can do as a council to promote what the Grey Bruce Health Unit is promoting, and that is healthy food choices in our community centers and our public spaces. So I just like to keep that in mind, that maybe we need to look at that and whether there's some way that we can do to help push that. I know we have vending machines in the building, which is promoted by Coca-Cola. I'm not so sure pop is the best thing to have in our arenas. I know we talked about what we allow in our vending machines, and we also have candy machines, which I'm not sure are really necessary in our arenas, but apparently they're there, and maybe it's something we need to look at in the future. So, like I say, I'm not against renewing this license, but I think in the future we should look at promoting as much as healthy food choices as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Well, I'd just like to say the candy machines are not owned or rented by the people in the canteen. That's the arena that does that. So we can deal with that if that's your wish.
Yep.
But I do want to say we have tried it on our own and ran them themselves. And Doug, you don't want to go there. It's much better when they're contracted out. I'm sure if you want to talk to them about healthy food, you can. But I tell you that Steve Lance has tried it in Eaton and, healthy things. And you need to talk to the kids and the parents, because when they want a treat, they don't want a carrot stick, they want a French fry.
Times are changing.
Oh, yeah. Rebecca, do you have a comment? Go ahead.
I just want to ask, this licensee always pays on time, is that true? Paid current?
I haven't heard any issues with prompt payments.
Okay, and we have a copy of their liability insurance?
I would anticipate it was given when it was first entered into, yes.
And every year since?
I can verify that if you wish, yes.
Okay. Carol?
I just have a short question. Is there some reason it's only a year? Or did they just ask for a year? Because it seems to me, if they're intending to continue, rather than a year by year by year, even a 2-year would be.
The clause in the bylaw stipulates that a 1-year extension can be granted by written approval of both parties, so that's the way that...
Okay, so that's the way it's going on.
Unless the bylaw is crafted differently in a new and past.
Okay.
That's the provision.
All right then, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Okay, Mark? And unless there's any other questions for Mark, let's go on to bylaws then. And we do have a number of them, so we'll pass those motions out to get endorsed, to be introduced. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tonight. To be fair and equal, we'll pass 3 each way. Okay, I have, the first one is bylaw number 73. Seems to be a little bit out, but there was some negotiation with the owner, and he has now agreed upon the site plan suggestions by council and is in favor of them. So I have a motion moved by Bev Cutting, seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that bylaw number 73, 2017, being a bylaw to rezone Lot 25, Concession 13, former Township of Bentic, Kuiper, zoning amendment 0617, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered in the said bylaw, be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Is there any other comments? Mark?
Yes, so I did want to mention to council that Mr. Keffer did request consideration for a 10-year maximum period for Garden Suite. However, the planning committee did recommend a 5-year, so that's the way the bylaw has been crafted, unless there's any second thoughts about it.
Okay, Rebecca first, and then Carol.
Also to clarify the clustering of the properties together.
Yes.
So you'll see in the schedule, it's kind of hard to see. It's a very small schedule with attached. It's been reduced from the 11 by 17 size paper, but there is a triangular area near where the existing house and outbuildings are. And within that, if it is going to be clustered, the mobile home or garden suite, it'll be just to the west of the existing barn and east of the existing barn and northeast of the existing dwelling, where in one of the pocket areas that the planning committee recommended it be located.
And suggested. Councillor Lawrence. Carol?
Well, I wondered if we would consider a 3-year term as opposed to a 5. Not forgetting that that trailer is 60 years old. And it gives it time to, you know, is it working or not, and working with the neighbors. I mean, it could probably be extended in 3 years, but... And my other question, Mark, Mark, I saw the plan, and you showed us where it is, but do we have anything, an agreement in writing from him, from Kyle, that that's where it's going to be?
Well, again, the building envelope in the bylaw dictates where that is to happen. So if it was to occur miraculously, if they moved it outside that building envelope, then there would be some action taken if...
Because I didn't, like, there's nothing with this unless it's on the internet, but...
Was there not a schedule?
Nope, not with mine, no.
There is.
Yeah, there is. You didn't...
Okay, I wasn't with the packet,
Sorry,
my
you
package,
must have.
so, as long as it's in the schedule and it's in
Yes,
writing that
yes,
it's, so he can't move it, outside of that area. And,
Okay, so Carol was asked. Councillor Lawrence is asked to amend back to a 3-year. I mean, it's in for a 5-year right now. Mover and seconder. Ooh. I guess, would you entertain that as a friendly amendment?
if there's a second.
Well, all these other agreements that we've ever made were for 10 years. I'm comfortable with a 5-year agreement.
Most of them are 20, just to be
Yes.
clear.
So I think this is a little bit of micromanaging, and I'm comfortable with a 5-year agreement so that we don't have to see this for 5 years, if any of us are here then. But I don't think we need to make it 3-year.
Okay, so I'm not taking it as friendly. Do you want to make that as an amendment, Carol, or?
Yeah, would you do a second on that,
John and Bev.
Okay, I'll move that it be amended to be a 3-year.
Do I have a seconder for that? All right. Rebecca, further questions on the main motion?
Yes, I was just curious, this right now is not in compliance. Do we give them 30 days to become compliant?
So if the bylaw is passed, there is a 20-day appeal period from when it's given notification. So if there's no appeal, then yes, we would certainly make sure that was done in expedient manner. And if it was not, then action would be taken to enforce that. Yes, property standards and zoning bylaw itself. It would be a violation.
Yep. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, bylaw number 81. This one's recommended by the Planning Committee for approval. Is on Marvin Martins in Normanby. Have the motion moved by Rob Thompson, seconded by Doug Hutchison. Be it resolved that bylaw number 81, 2017, being a bylaw to enter into a site plan agreement on lands described as Part Lot 75, Concession B, former Township of Normanby, Marvin Martin, zoning application 19-16, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Very good. The next one, bylaw 82, is the rezoning of those the aforementioned lands. Have a motion moved by R. Hergert, seconded by Bev Cutting. Be it resolved that bylaw number 82, 2017, being a bylaw to rezone lands described as Part Lot 75, Concession B, former Township of Normanby, Marvin Martin, ZA 1916, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Is there any questions or comments on this motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. The next one is bylaw number 83. This one was from Michael and Lynn Knowlton, and this one is recommended for approval by the Planning Committee. I have a motion moved by Rob Thompson, seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that bylaw number 83, 2017, being a bylaw to rezone lands described as Lot 34, Concession 2, WGR, former Township of Bentinck, Michael and Lynn Knowlton, ZA 0717, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed as amended. There was no amendment to that? Clerical. Passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Is there any questions or comments on this motion? As I said, this one was recommended by the Planning Committee too. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Very good. The next one is a rezone lands in the village of Newstead. This one's been ongoing for a little bit, but it needed an official plan amendment, and that was passed just recently at the county. So now it is before us. I have a motion moved by R. Hergert, seconded by Carol Lawrence. Be it resolved that bylaw number 84, 2017, being a bylaw to rezone lands described as Part Lot 1, Concession 13, Geographic Village of Newstead, Steve Lawrence, ZA 0217-OPA number 5, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Is there any questions or comments on this motion? Doug, Councillor Hutchison.
Just to review, so this is the one that where Mr. Lawrence wants to build a house on property.
Single-family dwelling?
Newstead?
Yep,
Okay.
on the south end of Newstead.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's been a little while since they've been here.
Yep. But they had to go through as I said, the delay was from the county portion of getting the official plan amendment through as well, too, at the county.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. That's it. That was 84, this one's 85, yep, okay. Sorry, and 85 is the confirming bylaw. I have a motion moved by John A. Bell, seconded by Doug Hutchison. Be it resolved that bylaw number 85, 2017, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the August 21st, 2017 council meeting, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on this motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Very good. Thank you, Mark. New business. Anyone have any new business? Councillor Lawrence? Carol?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will be bringing a motion forward under, I guess, direct motion with regard to Rockwood Terrace.
Okay. That'll be under any other new business? Yeah, direct motion. Addendums, notice motion or direct motions? Councillor Lawrence, you have a direct motion?
I do. If I might, I'll read it. It's moved by Doug Hutchison and...
Abby, we'll just, what it's about, then we have to introduce it.
Okay, I did say Rockwood Terrace and the retention of
It's on
beds.
Rockwood Terrace. I'll need a 2/3 majority to introduce a direct motion.
Oh, sorry. I forgot about that.
That's where I'm going with that. All those in favor of introducing the direct motion? And I declare we've got the 2/3 majority. Councillor Lawrence, you have the floor for your direct motion.
Thank you. It's moved by Doug Hutchison, seconded by Rob Thompson. Whereas a decision has been made by Grey County Council on the future direction of long-term care in Grey County after extensive review and research by county council, or by county staff, and with inclusive dialogue with the LIN and others. And whereas there is still a deep concern in the residents, families, and staff of Rockwood Terrace and the community due to the uncertainty and controversy surrounding that decision, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey, with the support of its citizens, hereby urges Grey County Council to confirm the retention of long-term care beds in the area serviceable by Durham infrastructure.
Thank you. That's what we have. This will be one of the first times I haven't read that. You've read it already for me. Have a motion moved by Doug Hutchison and second by Rob Thompson. Whereas a decision has been made by Grey County Council on the future direction of the long-term care, Grey County, and after extensive review and research by the county and staff, and with inclusive dialogue within the LIN and others, and whereas there is still a deep concern to the resident families and staff of the Rockwood Terrace and the community due to the uncertainty and controversy surrounding that decision. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey, with the support of its citizens, hereby urges Grey County Council to confirm the retention of long-term care beds in the area serviceable by Durham infrastructure. That's the motion that's on the floor. Is there any discussion or comments on that? This would be our motion. Do you want that forwarded?
To the county, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It should be
It's just
forwarded
where
to the
it's
county.
Forward to the county?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. If there's no other comments, all those in favor, call the question. Any opposed? That is carried. I think that will give clear direction to the county councillors that the municipality of West Grey and the citizens would like to see this project continue to move forward at a reasonable pace, not the snail's pace.
Reasonable pace, and as I said, confirmation that the beds will stay in the area that we can
Geographic.
service out of Durham, in or out, but
Central location.
serviceable by our services, yeah.
Yep, good. Councillor Herget.
I was just curious, at our next committee of the whole meeting, is it possible that we could have an update from county council, maybe specifically to Rockwood Terrace, but on any matters that would affect West Grey? maybe committee of the whole would be an appropriate place to have that.
Very good. We will try. We have a county council meeting this Thursday, so if there's any updates on things, I think Councillor Bell and I try to do that at any time that there is projects. There is a few that are in the go right at the present moment, so we'll see if we've got any updated information on that, whether it's recolored gray, long-term care beds, to some of the construction projects that we're looking on county roads that are within West Grey at this point in time. Good point. Okay. Councillor Hutchison.
Maybe just to further add to that sort of working through as you said, the recolored gray, the county official plan, there's a lot of information in there, which is good information, I think, what's out there and what direction the county is going. So I think that's very worthwhile reading for anyone who wants to get involved in that. And we are having that meeting on the 12th of September in Durham, right, that they're asking for public input. 6:30.
Yeah.
6:30, right.
6:30, and correct me if I'm wrong, at the community center?
Durham Community Center.
Yeah. It's not at the town hall, it's at the community center.
Yeah.
For that input. There are 9 scheduled meetings. Each municipality has one scheduled for each, so if you couldn't make that one in West Grey, there may be one in Chatsworth and or Southgate and or Hanover or Blue Mountains, if you want to go that far, for input. It's not specific to your own community. Okay. We have no closed sessions. At this point in time, I'd open it up for question period. If there's any questions on anything that was on the agenda for tonight, this is your chance for 2 minutes. If you could give your name. Marianne?
Hi,
You've got it.
Marion Ratcliffe.
Yes.
I'm shorter than he was. My question, I actually came prepared to ask questions about lighting for the bridge, but it sounds like that's being deferred. I still would ask, maybe we can have a look, since it's going to be built and lighting afterwards, do we even need lighting? Would save money off the top. You might still put hydro in so that for Christmas, you can string your Christmas lights. But the question is, do you need lighting the rest of the year around? Just something to think about.
And I would hope that would be looked at, I don't know, seeing as it's an old railway bridge, do we get the railway lanterns out there?
Candles.
Would be one of the ones, yeah. Now Doug's suggesting candles as well, too.
Yeah.
But I think from Brent's perspective, we'll certainly be doing that and connecting with the Dark Sky Committee on some of the recommendations or thoughts that would be going forward. Thanks, Marianne. Any other questions from any of the audience? Steve? Push that little button. If you give your name for the record.
Steve Lawrence here. I just want to thank council on behalf of myself and Kim here. You guys have all been great support to us with this. It's taken a long time. One thing I would like you is to look into, I'm not sure what you guys can do about it, is the bureaucracy is just getting carried away, guys. It is terrible. Not just with you guys, but all government. Bureaucracy is running this. You guys aren't. I'm not sure where you go with this and that, but it's just everything. We've got this all behind us now. I've got some letters here I want to give you that we've just gotten from our planner, from the conservation, what our next steps are. We're still not done with them. Apparently we have some stuff that we still have to do with them and that. And we were at the meeting the other day there, and I heard Ron Davidson and these were talking about, there was an MTO traffic study or something that was oh, we'll let that go because we've got all this stuff in place. And Kevin, you specifically said, oh, we got some common sense here finally, right? Where is that gone to, guys? Like, it is terrible out there. Like, the common sense is nowhere anymore in government anymore. We have to get back to that some way, somehow. The bureaucracy is just running this, you guys aren't.
Okay.
Thank you.
A lot of it has been legislated out, and that's just, well, I'll leave it there. Okay.
You just take a look on the first page isn't so much, but the second page there, so letter of conservation, it very much contradicts itself.
Okay. Yep. I guess on the part on what Rebecca is mentioning is we did have a meeting with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry at the AMO, Association of Municipalities Conference in Ottawa that some of us spoke about earlier. And specifically that was around what is some municipalities, and I believe it's this one, has said that from the Conservation Authority's perspective, what the mission creep has come and what the duplicity or 3 or 4 layers that have on the same topic, whether it's from the county planning, municipal planning, Conservation Authority planning, how many times does an individual need to justify their project or programs to how many different authorities? So certainly the ministry with the Conservation Authorities Act, the Niagara Escarpment Act, both being in Bill 138, I think it's 138, and that is gone through the consultation. We'll be coming back September the 11th. She did say that it would be one of the first pieces put in place, going for public comment on where the Conservation Authorities Act and how it's rewritten and what will happen there. So they're looking for public comment going back to committee in the fall before it's put to rest and voted on, probably in the spring session when it comes back. So there may be a point there, and it was one of the points that I made, that it needs to be brought back into the creep of different bureaucracies, to use your word, has expanded dramatically. But a lot of that has been because of not legislative, but litigation reasons that we've got to where we are at today. And common sense, instead of Bay Street lawyers, should be making policy for our municipalities. So thank you, Steve, for recognizing that. Okay, anyone else? Thank you. Municipal Act notices, Mark, I don't believe we have any. Councillor Hergert, do you have one last motion? Okay, I'll accept that. Motion 20 is to adjourn. Thank you very much. I believe our next meeting is September 4th, 3rd? 7th? 6th on the Wednesday because of the Labor Day weekend. So thank you. We'll see you then. All right. And we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.